Doug Casey is the chairman of Casey Research, best-selling author, world-renowned speculator, and libertarian philosopher. Doug Casey has garnered a well-earned reputation for his insights into politics, economics, and investment markets. Doug is widely respected as one of the preeminent authorities on rational speculation, especially in the high-potential natural resource sector. Doug literally wrote the book on profiting from periods of economic turmoil, which we're entering big time. His book, Crisis Investing, spent multiple weeks on the #1 New York Times best-selling list and became the best-selling financial book of 1980, surpassing big caliber names like Free to Choose by Milton Friedman and The Real War by Richard Nixon and Cosmos by Carl Sagan. Cosmos, CaseyResearch.com. Okay, I threw out a cornucopia, Doug, of things that are happening, things that are going on. 2 weeks ago, I tried to get you on the show about some international issues taking place, but and the war on people trying to expatriate and capital control starting to go in. Big global banks are meeting, openly saying in cash. What do you make of all this activity? Where is the state of the world economy right now, and what is Doug Casey doing to protect himself?
Well, Alex, it's great to be here, and I agree with everything you've said so far and enjoyed listening to you. As far as what's going to happen, let me give you a quote from Ray Bradbury. He said, "Something wicked this way comes," and that's exactly what's going on in the world today. On just about every front, the military front, the economic front, the social front, the political front, we're really heading into something really nasty. So it's a matter of great concern. And I think that your listeners shouldn't just be listening, they should be acting about this, because there's an excellent chance that even a year from now, even 6 months from now, it could be a month from now, the whole world is going to be turned inside out and upside down in a lot of different ways. So where should we start?
You know what? I'm going to give you the floor. Start wherever you want.
Well, I have to agree with you. First of all, what you said about FIFA, most Americans really don't give a damn about soccer. I mean, most of what we know about soccer relates back to Brandy Chastain back in 1999 when she ripped her jersey off and displayed a wonderful body.
Yes.
When she scored that winning goal against the Chinese women team in a FIFA tournament. But, you know, so they're making a big deal out of a bribery scandal in FIFA. But, you know, most people are unaware that FIFA is a private group. It's been around for 100 years. It's controlled by the guys that run it. Okay, that's fine. Their main job is to designate what the rules are for football and where the World Cup is going to be played, and money's passed around because their obligation is to these 200 and some government organizations that control soccer in various countries. So what's the big deal here? I mean, sure, they're paying themselves well, but it's nothing compared to the kind of theft that goes on with governments themselves.
Well, sure. I mean, the big banks spend like $2 billion of the $3 billion spent in a U.S. election operation, and really, from what I've seen, that's all they're doing is going in and giving money to the local sporting organizations as part of a profit-sharing operation. It just seems like the mafia that runs our country thinks it controls the whole world.
Well, that's right, Alex, and that is the most disturbing thing about it. 99% of all the people that watch soccer, that play soccer, all the soccer that's played, it's all outside of the United States. And these people they've indicted, they're all foreigners. And it's like the U.S. government, of all people, has become the world's moral arbiter and the world's policeman, where they're actually going to foreign governments and getting these foreign citizens extradited to stand trial back in the U.S. for violating American laws. And they're nonsense laws, like money laundering, which only became a crime, was manufactured as a crime only about 30 years ago. I mean, this is all shocking. I mean, nobody's safe anywhere in the world from the reach of the U.S. government anymore. This is just one more example. It's in the same class as last year when the U.S. sent a SWAT team into New Zealand to attack Kim Dotcom, who's a German citizen and was violating no laws, either in New Zealand or...
Well, sure, let's expand on that. A law lets IRS seize accounts on suspicion, no crime required. That's the money laundering law that's written to be so broad outside of law. A 40-plus year Mexican restaurant that's got like 8 seats deposits the cash every day. They admit the cash is all clean. They're putting it in the bank, so they steal the woman's $37,000 life savings. And I mean, it's just crazy what our government's turned into.
Yeah, it is. It's really turned into a cancer that's metastasizing, and it's taken on a life of its own at this point. It's a great matter of concern. And it's one reason why I really emphasize internationalizing yourself so that you're not totally under the control of the U.S. government. I mean, the risk in the financial markets is extreme, but it's nothing compared to the political risk that you have from your own government. Very, very disturbing.
What do you think spurring the power trip to have I know you're an expert on this, our government starting a war with Russia, starting a war with China, and we're not lionizing Russia or China, but they're not the ones aggressively, especially Russia, doing this. And it even came out in mainstream news today that our government admits they tried to overthrow Egypt, our ally, and put the Muslim Brotherhood in. So now Egypt's joined Russia and doing joint naval patrols. Why would they double-cross 35-year allies and put radicals in that chop Christians' heads off? Has our government gone criminally insane?
I think that's a reasonable way to describe it, actually, Alex. And looking at this brouhaha in the eastern Ukraine, what we have there are 2 provinces that are populated mainly by Russian speakers. The Ukraine isn't a real country anyway. It's kind of a political intertidal zone where a bunch of nationalities are caught between Russia and Romania and so forth. So these 2 provinces want to split off from the bankrupt and corrupt Ukrainian government and become independent. And the U.S. is backing the corrupt Ukrainian government in making these 2 provinces stay part of the Ukraine. I mean, this is just crazy, and they're trying to implicate the Russians in this. Of course, the Russians are sympathetic to these people because they're also Russians, and they'd like to see a border country in between them and the Ukraine, which, of course, the Americans are trying to get into NATO. But, this is like asking to start World War III. It really is criminally insane.
You, again, are the best-selling author who broke down how to be an international individual, seeing this whole thing coming, and you've seen booms and busts. You've been credited for making folks a lot of money that listen to your strategies. And I want to get some of those strategies with you coming up in the next segment. But in the 8 or 9 minutes before we go to break, Doug Casey of CaseyResearch.com, looking at all the world news and this acceleration towards classical totalitarianism, do you think it's a conscious move or just the fact that different political elites have nothing holding them back? They've gotten away with so much, and so they're just slouching into a form of fascistic decadence.
Well, they're definitely doing that, but I guess the question is it a conscious move or is it just something that happens with a life of its own? And I think it's a result of the fact that you've got 2 kinds of people in the world. You've got people that like to control physical reality, and I like those kind of people. They're what improve the world. And then you've got another class of people, and those are people that like to control other people. And that's the type of person that gets into government, that goes into politics. So actually, it's not the best and the brightest people that go into government. It's the lowest and most degraded types that are attracted to the seat of power where they can control other people. So since that's the nature of the government, that it attracts that type of personality, it's inevitable that government becomes worse and more malignant as time goes on. And
sure, and our system, as you know, was the founders who were the opposite, true Renaissance men and women. They wanted a small government set up to try to keep that at bay for a while. The problem is the paradox, that free system, not perfect, but freer than any other, created so much wealth that the government, even though it had a small tax, became large and fat and arrogant. The people became decadent, and now we're about to wake up homeless on the continent our forebears conquered.
Yeah, I agree with you. The situation has actually gotten out of control, and the government is so big and so powerful at this point that it can't be reversed. You know, even if Ron Paul was elected the last time, it wouldn't have done any good, because the first thing that would have happened to him, I believe, is he would have been sat down by the heads of various Praetorian agencies like the NSA and the CIA and the FBI and a dozen others like that, plus a bunch of generals and admirals, and they would have told him the way the game is played. And if he didn't play it, his life would be at risk. And if for some reason he dodged those bullets, he'd be indicted by the U.S. Congress. And if for some reason that didn't work, the average American would be out in the street rioting because his rice bowl was going to be broken, because the average American at this point gets more from the government than he pays in taxes. Not that I believe we should even have taxes.
Well, sure, but that's where I was going to go next, is he'd make some economic announcement, they manipulate the stock market, that's on record now, they would just dive it for a week, claim he did it, and all these fools would then say, run him out on a rail, they would support his impeachment.
Yeah, I think you're right, Alex, and I'm afraid that when the next crisis really blows up in the next little while, the American people, Bubis Americanus, as H.L. Mencken said, is going to clamor for somebody to kiss it all and make it better. We could very well wind up with some type of a military dictatorship in this country as the next step.
Well, that's what General Tommy Franks told Cigar Aficionado in 2013.
I'm a fan of Cigar Aficionado. Do you like cigars too?
I do like them, and of course the type I like, they try to embargo.
That's right. Well, when I see you next, we're going to have to sit down over a whiskey and a cigar and chat about all this stuff at leisure. But of course, tobacco is becoming illegal in this country, so we might have to smoke that cigar someplace outside of the U.S.
It's amazing, from land of the free, home of the brave, to the land of, what would you call America now? Because there's still a lot of great people here. You know, I was running down...
I'd call most of them whipped dogs at this point. They're whipped dogs, and when somebody in a uniform points a finger at them, they roll over on their backs and wet themselves. It's absolutely disgusting. I mean, the idea of America is dead in the United States at this point.
It certainly is, and the constabulary itself are a bunch of whipped dogs, scared, following orders. I do see, though, in the federal government and at state levels, we get a lot of leaks, a lot of good intel. As bad as the government is, per capita, there are more awake people I'm finding now in government because they know that things are getting really corrupt than I even see in the general population. So I do find that people in government finally realize and understand something wicked this way comes.
Yeah, you're right, Alex. But I'll tell you what concerns me. It's that the good people that are in government, I think they're being driven out by the bad people. In other words, a decent person, because more and more bad people gravitate towards the government, he doesn't want to be in that environment. It scares him, with good reason. He wants to go out someplace else where he's not surrounded by criminal personalities. So I mean, that's another reason why I think it's getting worse. I hate to be so negative.
No, but we got to be honest, and that's what founded America. Talk about your philosophy, what made you come up with this international man idea.